What is good? High noon. Welcome back to the Love Life and Legacy podcast. Thank you so much for being here. We love you. Today, Araceli and I are unraveling the concept of turning your shadows into light, to turning your demons into angels, to turning your liabilities and difficulties and struggles into true assets and even pleasurable life experiences. If you don't believe us, guys, check out this episode. We're going deep into our own personal experiences of walking through very, very dark, disturbing tunnels to find true light, liberation, and God's love. So please enjoy, and we love you. See you. What is good? High noon. We have Araceli back with y'all. How you doing, Araceli?
Hello, I'm doing good. I'm doing very well.
You are moving soon, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I'm moving. I'm going to America, at least
America.
temporarily.
Temporarily. We'll see about that.
Yeah.
From your country of Argentina, leaving behind.
South America. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're
Yeah.
going to have to learn how to throw a football, a proper football at some point.
Never.
I don't know why I thought of that. I was thinking about sports and Argentinian football and then American football.
Mm. Well, actually, David was saying that we need to pick a American football team, and I don't know about that.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's no country that plays American football except for US. Because I was
Yeah.
having this discussion with my kids about the Olympics, and then we talked about football. And we're like, well, no one
Mm.
plays football, and or American football, and
Yeah.
we were watching breakdancing. I was
Yeah.
genuinely shocked that there's breakdancing. Not because I don't like breakdancing. I love breakdancing. I was
Mm.
a break dancer. All right, head
Really?
spins,
Wow.
flares, air flares, 1990s, 2000s, guys. I could do it all in my
Wow.
teens. All right, I can still
Yeah.
do some stuff. If you guys meet me in person, you can ask me to do some stuff. But I was a breaker, and so when I didn't even know it was happening until the day of,
Mm.
and I was like,
Mm.
"Oh my goodness, I cannot believe this is happening. This is like
Yeah.
a dream come true." Right?
Mm.
Obviously, it was kind of a weird.
Yeah.
It was a really awkward sport at the Olympics because everything's
Yeah,
so
it is.
official, right?
Mm.
All these sports are so official and like serious, and these guys are just goofing around. And guys and gals are just having a blast, doing what they love.
Yeah.
Um, and we were like, how do they point this? What's the point system like? We have no
Right?
idea. We just
Yeah.
completely trust them. Uh, yeah.
But now they
So
took it down.
say what?
They took it down now. There's not gonna be
They took it away
breakdancing
already.
for the next. Yeah.
Already?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. They backtracked so fast on that. My God.
Yeah.
Well, we lived through a pivotal point in history where we actually had breakdancing in the Olympics
Yeah.
before
You
before
experienced it.
frisbee. That's actually surprising. Before ultimate frisbee, we had
Mm.
breakdancing
Oh, yeah.
and cup stacking. Apparently, there's a I guess it's the junior Olympics. We have cup
Mm.
stacking in the junior Olympics. So there you go.
Right.
Uh, so how did Argentina do in the Olympics?
I don't know. I actually didn't follow it. I
Okay.
I know that we got a golden medal for BMX, which
Okay.
is very hard to get from
Okay.
our. It's not
Cool.
something that we do much. And then usually we get the football one, but I don't know what happened there. So I don't know.
Well, you didn't have your star player, did you?
Now definitely not.
No.
Messi's it's old for the Olympic. Yeah.
Okay, we'll pretend like you did watch the Olympics and you know
And
everything
it was
about
amazing.
Argentinian sports.
Yeah.
We'll clip this out and not send it to Messi, just for you. My man, my buddy. Anywho, guys, welcome everyone. For context for this top conversation today, we are talking about a really sensitive but awesome, super, super enlightening, transformative concept that if we can grasp, it will change the way that you think about your life. All right. And that is how to turn shadows into light, how to turn our shadows into light, how to turn our suffering into assets, our liabilities in our lives into assets. And when you're in a shadow, when you're in the grind of it, it's really, really hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel and have faith and trust that this can be something positive in the end.
Yeah.
But Araceli was sharing some important things about her own experience that I wanted to highlight here today. So, what did you have for us?
Yeah, okay. This is a tough topic, as you said.
Yeah.
Because when you're going through something hard, it's so hard to go through it. And you experience it and it's painful, overwhelming, and all these negative emotions, and you feel stuck probably, and you feel like there's no way out of it. Um, and it's like it can be heartbreaking. It can be even soul crushing at some point. Um, and yeah, I'm remembering how I was feeling when I was dealing with my masturbation habit. And I felt like the worst person. I felt like I wasn't enough, like I wasn't worthy of, anything.
Mm,
I felt like life wasn't really like, it wasn't like I didn't want to leave, I didn't want to, you know, off myself or anything like that.
mm,
I didn't want to go through anything like that, but I didn't see the value in living in the state that I was living,
mm,
and it was so sad, I guess, all the time. Hurt, it was hurtful and lonely. That's the main thing. And and I know I'm saying all these words and they're, heavy, and I'm not maybe putting all the weight that they hold, but um, it was very lonely, and it
mm,
did really feel like life wasn't worth living at points. And there was so much suffering that I was questioning, like, why do we have to come to the world to live this through, right? This suffering. And it was so hard to see the light in that, tunnel, dark tunnel.
mm,
Um, but we have experiences, even if they're small, even if they're not, super big or super bright. We have experiences where we feel love, where we feel joy. Um, and that is actually what should be the baseline, right? That is life, actually. The reason God created was so that we could experience that joyful and love, bright life, right? And so when we are not able to feel that, there is something that is blocking, our way to feel that. We have to work through that because life is worth living. And those moments where we are in these dark tunnels, when you go through them, you can see the light much brighter, right? And so it is necessary to go through those, moments where we're growing, where we're suffering, where we have to like solve this blockage, right? And it is hard. I want to recognize that if you're going through something like that. Um, but I also want to mention that it's so worth it to go out of that tunnel, work through that, even when it feels like nothing is going to change, because feelings will pass, right? But what matters is what you do, right? Regardless of your feelings, right? Recognizing that everything that you feel is valid, but then when you do something about it, everything can change, right? And so I was going through my stuff and it took a long time and it took a lot of effort, and it it felt forced at points to feel joy and happiness and light. Um, but eventually I was able to realize that I needed to go through that to grow, and the growth pains that I was experiencing, that's what they were, growth pains, really helped me to go to a next level of everything of my life, right? And specifically with sexual integrity, for me, I think I wouldn't have gone through a state where I'm at right now. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be blessed to my amazing husband if I hadn't gone through all of that. And I needed to say that.
amazing husband.
Yeah, he's amazing.
I want. I'm waiting for the women to say my below average husband on a live podcast, just to be funny. Anyways, yes, you wouldn't be where you are with him right now, right? If you didn't go through.
Yeah. And not only it's not only that, I wouldn't have the relationship that I have right now, not only with my husband, but with my family, with God, with myself, where I feel everything that I went through was worth it. Because now I'm able to see through the other side, how all of those challenges, how all of those times where I was suffering, really allow me to now be able to experience what I'm able to experience today. And not only am I able to appreciate it in this, I feel like I can be grateful for everything, every small little thing that I have. And even though that's a cliche, I'm being honest about that. Um, but I'm also able to relate to things differently, right? And I appreciate those things. And I think especially with sexual integrity, if we're not intentional with that, it's just something that's there, you know. And sexual integrity and the relationship with sexuality, it's our relationship with God. It should be something so um, beautiful and so powerful, right? But if you don't do something active, intentional with it, you won't develop it. Even if you don't have any, sexual integrity issues, it won't develop, right? It won't grow. It's like, when you're not growing, you're dying. It's the same thing with your relationship with sexuality itself, with purity as well. And just not doing things doesn't cut it, right? To be able to experience God, in your life, in your heart, and in a new level eventually with your future spouse, you need to be able to work on that, right? And I remember that I was in that situation that we're all in at the beginning, where it's just, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't date, I can't fall in love, and all of these things. And everything was can't, and there wasn't an intention, a vision that I was following, right? And when I started to follow my vision, because I wanted to get blessed, and sexuality and purity was a really big part of that. And when I started to be intentional about that, that's when I had to suffer these growth pains. And um, and then I realized that my relationship with sexuality was not the best. um, and as I was working through that, I realized that my heart was hurt. My relationship with just myself in general, not just sexuality, wasn't um, wasn't aligned, wasn't good in general, just overall wasn't the best. And I couldn't feel love. I was just blocked from love. And when you're blocked from love, you're just blocked from happiness, right? Because in this idea of not doing something, I just blocked everything, right? Because I can't do one thing, I'll just, block my heart so that I don't make any mistakes. When I block my heart to everything, not only bad experiences, but bad feelings or negative feelings, also good things. So opening up to that, it opens you up to the bad things as well. But if you don't open up to that, you don't open up to the good. So concluding this thought is just opening up to working on all of these things that I didn't like about myself, that I was suffering through. It really opened myself to having the possibility of experiencing the good, the amazing that can be God's love. And today I can say that I'm very grateful for that, even though it hurt at that time, of course.
Yeah. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing.
yeah,
Everyone wants to get to the end of the tunnel without going through the darkness.
yeah,
Everyone wants to have six-pack abs without spending time in the gym or in the kitchen. Everyone wants to have that amazing, radiant Instagram marriage, relationship,
yeah,
spouse without putting in the work to create the internal necessities to make that happen. Everyone wants to get matched to the ideal spouse without figuring out what that even means and even being the first person to say, I want to be the ideal spouse. Right.
right. Mm-hmm.
So I can relate. I mean, when you were sharing about your feelings internally when you were going through that tunnel, struggling
Mm-hmm.
with your sexual integrity, I mean, it's like story of my life. I remember very vivid occurrences where I would wake up in the middle of the night after acting out. Like I would act out in the evening and then I would wake up in the middle of the night just like terrified. Like I
Mm,
can't believe I'm still here. Like that's what was
mm,
going through my head.
right.
Right? You said the thing going through your head was like, is it something like, is it worth living? Right?
Yeah.
I've been there too, and it's not a suicidal thought. It's just like
Yeah.
I don't want to be alive anymore.
Yeah.
I hate this existence, and that's how I
Exactly.
felt too.
Yeah.
I would wake up and
Yeah.
be like, I hate being me,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Yeah.
hate that I'm still here. And when you're in that, like you're saying, it is nearly it's I don't want to say it's not impossible, but I know it's possible because what took me out of that is seeing people and talking to people that have been through it.
Right.
Because then your perspective has changed because we all think we're alone in this battle,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because we don't talk to people. We don't hear stories. We don't hear women like you, Araceli, talking about their sexual integrity
Mm-hmm.
ever, right?
Yeah.
Especially women. We have more
Mm-hmm.
men, generally speaking, that talk about their victories and struggles about porn masturbation, but it is a almost universal struggle right now in our
Yeah.
culture between men and
Yeah.
women. And we all think we're alone because we think we're some special unicorn snowflake of a human being that's so perverted and weird and freak of nature
Mm.
that no one would accept us and God wouldn't accept us. And we're just so strange. And then I was like, as soon as I talk to people, they're like been through exactly what I've been through, even worse situations. I was like, wow, like I'm not weird. And that's liberating.
Yeah.
That's not excusing anything, right? We think of
Right.
that as justification or rationalizing our actions. It's not. It's actually just to understand that we're not weird, first of all. And if we can
Yeah.
understand that, then it's like, oh, maybe there's actually something going on underneath that is
Mm-hmm.
deeper than just I have a high sex drive and I'm a weird perverted person. It's like maybe there's
Yeah.
something deeper. And so I can relate with that, just feeling like just terrible. But it was really through talking with people that helped me have perspective for me and to kind of take you out of the ditch so you can kind of see that you're in a ditch to
Yeah.
begin with.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just in a ditch and you're like, why is life so hard? And meanwhile, you're digging the ditch, deeper and deeper and you're covering yourself with dirt. And you're like, why is this so difficult? And then you realize that there's a bunch of people above you trying to reach down and pull you up, but you're just so busy
Mm.
digging a hole. It's like, it's
Right.
so hard. Why do I have to, you know? And that's where a lot of people are, and we understand that. And so that's why we're sharing this from a frame of compassion, really.
Yeah.
When you were sharing, or do you have something to add? I had a question.
No, no, go ahead. I can share after.
Yeah, well, my curiosity for you is if you didn't discover ever, let's say you never discovered masturbation, right?
Mm. Yeah.
What would have happened? Like, how would have your kind of, internal demons manifested otherwise if you didn't ever discover
Mm.
masturbation? What do you think?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think that I was going into this path of becoming this self-righteous, judgmental person that could not accept anyone with a flaw. And if you weren't perfect like me, right? Because that was the thought, um, you were a bad person, and you were not worthy of my time or attention or love, and you were not worthy of love in general. And that was my thought, and that would have been my thought. And even though I was right in the way that I was in my actions, let's say I was perfect in paper, in my heart I was not able to accept people. I would not have been able to accept people where they're at in their growth. I would have not been able to accept growth itself, and I would have gotten stuck at this point of I'm perfect because I haven't done X, Y, and Z, and I do C, D, E. And then if you are not like me, then you are not perfect. And I would have been lonely on this other side of a parallel sidetrack of the road where you don't go anywhere because you're not growing, right? Yeah, and I think that would have been terrible as well because not only I wouldn't have been able to accept anyone outside of that bubble, right? I wouldn't have been able to grow, and I wouldn't have been able to experience God's love in a much deeper level, and experience God's love through loving others, right? Because that's the way that you experience God's love. I wouldn't have been able to do that because I wouldn't have been able to love others
Interesting.
through their growth and accept that that is our reality, that is what happens, that we need to grow. And I think I wouldn't have been able to accept myself if I made a mistake, even if it wasn't, masturbation or something like that. I would be so hard on myself, right, to be perfect all the time, which is, not fully possible. So yeah, and I could see, myself becoming this person, very, judgmental, very not accepting, not tolerant, and
Interesting.
yeah, and I think that I would got into a point where there was a ceiling, a roof that I could not go through in my growth and stay stuck there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and all those things you mentioned, perfectionism,
Hmm.
self-righteousness, are all forms of addiction and shadows
Right.
that are actually celebrated
I see. Hmm.
culturally. They're
Yeah.
celebrated, societally speaking. Like, I am a
Hmm.
perfectionist. How many people have you heard that said that? Oh, I'm a
Yeah.
perfectionist, and that's why I act like this.
Hey guys, this is a quick sponsorship for our main program, Ascend. We get to do sponsorships, right? We're a nonprofit, we don't do any advertising, but our free program, Ascend, is just for you guys and gals who want to have sexual integrity. You're tired of the porn and masturbation cycle and you want to break free from these shadows and the shame. So join us at highnoon.org to join the sexual integrity program called Ascend. We have groups, we have mentors, we have everything you need to succeed. All right? Join us at highnoon.org and I'll see you on the inside.
Yeah.
Right?
So many.
And it's actually interesting because you're bringing up this point of gratitude. Because if you went down that road of like self-righteous perfectionists and you never discovered masturbation, if I never discovered porn, masturbation, our lives would have been very different. Actually, a lot, maybe a lot worse. Because
Yeah.
many times we do gravitate towards things that are forms of dependencies and substances, like whatever it is, status, looks,
Yeah.
appearance, being admired,
Yeah.
physical possessions, being right, and all these things that are on the surface celebrated and good for you. You're going for it. You're working hard. But if you dig deeper, are usually in most cases a form of addiction or dependency, just to deal with some kind of internal turmoil and emotional needs. But masturbation and porn are almost like clear indicators, like, okay, something's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
a clear indication that I need to get my life together. It's kind of rock bottom for a lot of people, especially people that in our world. It's like rock bottom. I was just mentoring a brother who reported to me he acted out sexually. He watched porn and masturbated 3 times in one day, right? And obviously he feels terrible about this.
Yeah.
And I asked him, because I'm his mentor. I was like, I was like, well, why did you do this, right? That kind of thing. And I was making the point, like, there's no biological reason to masturbate 3 times in a day. Like, there's, that's actually pretty hard to do, if you ask me. And so, I mean, he's wise enough. So it's like, obviously, we've got to get past the point where we're like, oh, it's just a sexual issue. Because
Yeah.
there's no reason under the sun for somebody to masturbate 3 times in a day at all, ever.
Yeah.
And so my point is that it's a very obvious, overt reason as to that there's some kind of pain and turmoil
Yeah.
that people are dealing with. And so that's why I think a lot of the people that gravitate towards high noon are not the weirdest or most perverted or strangest, freakiest people. They're actually the most like not selfish, they're most conscientious people. They're
Yeah.
conscientious
Yeah.
because they're like, I want this, but I'm stuck and weighed down by this. And I
Yeah.
hate that about myself and I want to do something about it. Right.
Yeah.
And so if people are in that situation, I always tell them, like, don't be ashamed of your habit. Be proud that you're doing something about it, because most people
Right.
aren't doing something about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's totally right. And to your point of perfectionism and all these things being addictions, they not only, in the surface they feel like they're good things, right? But they don't lead to connection, right? If you are always right, then you're burning bridges all the time, right? It's not productive for a relationship that you are right all the time and that you have to be right, right? Because sometimes the strategies that you may take in order to be right all the time, they may be terrible, right, for your relationship with someone. Or perfectionism, there that's going to be terrible for your whole mental health. And so all those things, they're actually obstacles to connection, right? And in the end, the purpose is that we feel connected, to ourselves, to God, to others. And for masturbation, they are also obstacles to connection. But they, as you said, they're clearly indicators that we want connection, right? Because sexually, right, sex is a way to get connection, right? If you do it in the right, environment, in the right time with your spouse, all these things that, of course, that are the ideal, they would lead to connection, right? So they are clear obstacles for that. And as you said, it is easier to see that than to see perfectionism or judgmental, all these things to feel like they are bad things for you. When you're in that state of mind, you don't realize that it's so wrong for yourself and for your relationship with others. And it's so easy to get confused in this state of mind that, because you're doing well, then that there's nothing wrong, right? And so I definitely agree that the people that go to a course in sexual integrity training like Ascend or Core in High Noon, they're definitely aware and they're definitely trying to do something about why they're not feeling connected, right? And how they can feel connected, right? And and yeah, I think that you should be proud of the fact that you're doing something, as you said. Yeah.
So how is your story turned into an asset for you in your life?
Yeah, great question. Well, first, I think because of my past story and my growth and it, currently today, I was able to accept myself, first of all. So my relationship with myself and God, the God in me, I'm doing very well with that. And through that, I was able to help others, right? I became a facilitator first, and it made me grow so much becoming a facilitator. I was intentional with my own growth, but I was trying to support others in their own journey, and I was able to love them, and I grew my heart and my love so much for others, and that actually helped me in my relationship with my siblings, with my parents, and just being able to understand that we are growing, and put into context the fact that we are growing means that, we're not going to be perfect at everything, and for some people, it might be, different things, right? Everyone has a different thing where they need to, grow a lot. And, being able to accept the fact that we're not perfect, right? That we're here in this earth to grow, right? We're going to go through those things. And that is the purpose, that we need to go through those things in order to grow, in order to connect with God in a deeper level, in a more, yeah, profound and transformational level.
Yeah.
And so through that, then, in the same vein, let's say I was able to do the same with my husband in the matching process. We talked about our, porn masturbation habits. We were able to accept each other. I was able to accept him, which for me, I before I thought that I would never be able to accept someone that had any mistake, regarding, sexual integrity. And I was able to not only accept him but support him as he went through his own journey and in growth, right? And today, actually currently, I still am able to do that. And recently we had a not an argument, but you know, something happened, and my husband needed to share with me that he was going through something, right, in his own journey, and we had been going, everything was perfect, right? Everything was going, idyllic, let's say, and he that this conversation where he was sharing honestly and vulnerably with me that he was dealing with something that he needed to grow through. He was dealing with his own, suffering, pains, and his own tunnel. Um, Even though in our relationship we're doing well, he individually was needing to go through something. When he told me that, I kind of like went back to this place where I had this choice, right? To either get mad, condemn him, and continue down this path of, a path that would not be, healthy or productive or even positive for our relationship. Or I could choose to, realize that we're not perfect and that we all need to grow, and, everyone has its own time, right? And I could be supportive and have grace, even though it was painful to have grace at that time. It took me a while, actually. It took me a time while we was having this conversation to be able to put myself in a position where I could have grace and understand where my husband was coming from. But I was able to do that, and it was really good because from that we went deeper. We were, and I think he was able to feel supported. I hope, and that I was able to just, yeah, go back to this accepting and loving type of, place, and I chose that, and that was positive so that we now are doing better, right? So that we can continue in our growth together as a couple as well, supporting each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it was really good. And even though I felt, I felt like, in a way, betrayed, because I thought everything was going great, and then, out of nowhere he tells me, oh, I'm actually dealing with something. It was necessary, right? Because I want to be able to love my husband, in every, way, and whatever good or bad situation we're in. So for me, I was very grateful that he was able to share that with me, even though it was hard to hear, to be able to then support him through that. So I'm very grateful that I went through my own thing, so be able to accept others, right? And that is an asset for me, to be able to help others, right?
Yeah, thank you. As a result, do you feel more deeply connected than before?
Yes, definitely more connected, and I guess just lighter in a way. That's what it feels like, just lighter and more connected. Yeah.
Trust.
And yes, I feel like I'm one with him. There's nothing in between us, even if we're going through something, that we need to go, grow through. There's nothing between us, and we're doing that together, and that is amazing to feel with myself individually, but also with my husband.
There's been on a similar vein, I've been going through a realization about the power of sexuality in couples, absolute sex, because I've been researching a lot about absolute sex from true parents' perspective, right? More so father's perspective. And I was always feeling dissatisfied because he didn't really teach about it to the extent that he could have. Now, he did say stuff, and I know anecdotally everyone will say, well, he talked about this and this. All right, this is my opinion, just Benji's opinion here. This is not Heinen's opinion. I think that true father, he didn't teach about it using examples. All right. And that's
Yeah.
when we're learning directly from people. Well, first of all, the best way to learn anything is through personal experience. And the second best way is to learn from other people's personal experience. And so even though father may have talked about his own experience, he and true mother don't represent the majority of our day-to-day life. Like, they didn't have a normal life. It was pretty extraordinary, the lives they had. And they had 14 children, right? And their mother and father. And so my opinion is that a more profound way that absolute sex can be taught is through examples and through real life stories of showing, like, hey, there's this couple here that started their relationship and they hated each other. They didn't want to touch each other. This is actually my story, by the way. And now they can't stop making out. And they just love having sex, like deeply, deeply, internally, spiritually connected, physically as well. Those kinds of stories is how we learn. How did they do it? What happened? What were the mental processes, the emotions that took place in order to get them from zero to hero, from zero to 100, right? And so personally, I've never been satisfied with our words about absolute sex. And so I was going deeper into the more secular education about sex theology, not theology, sex ideology and that kind of stuff. And I've always been really hesitant with that stuff because it's very crass. It's very kind of crude and just vulgar. It's super vulgar stuff. And it's really hard to listen to as like a man of faith that believes in God and the union between man and woman. It's really hard to listen to. But I started going down that path because I figured there must be a medium between those two worlds of the extreme religious side, which is beautiful and accurate, but is not taught in a very practical way, right? I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
Like no religion has
Definitely.
really figured out how to really teach about sexuality in a way that makes sense, that is better than everything else, okay? And the other side, we have the secular stuff that is very thorough, very scientific, lots of experience, but it's also very crude and secular and just crass. And so I was never happy with either side. And so I figured like, maybe that's what we're here to do, Araceli. Maybe that's what High Noon's here to do, is to help merge these two worlds, the science and the religion of sexuality, of absolute sex, to create a really beautiful thing through examples and through our own experiences. And so my journey in the last few months of just really going deep into both sides is that my conclusion, actually the scientific conclusion on the secular side, is not actually have sex with everybody you want and masturbate yourself to death. That's actually not what they're saying. They're actually saying, if you look into it, the number one way to create a truly deep relationship is through emotional vulnerability, which is not what you expect. And so even on the extreme secular side of sexual education, the conclusion is the true way to have a deeply connected sexual experience with a person is through being intimately bonded with them, vulnerably, emotionally, and spiritually, right? Which gives a lot of credibility to this fact, the idea of one man, woman together for life. Because you could sleep around to kingdom come with a bunch of people and have junk food sex, essentially, or you could develop a true bond with one person and experience a more spiritually enlightened and God-centered experience, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like we've been comparing apples to apples, but actually it's more like comparing rotten apples to apples. Or more accurately, I think it's comparing apples to rotten oranges. It's a completely different species of fruit, and it's rotten that we're comparing it to. But our world is like, oh, well, those people are having great sex in the secular world. Why can't we just sleep around with whoever we want and masturbate and watch porn? Everyone else is doing it. Seems to be they're enjoying their life. Actually, they're enjoying a really rotten version of life that they have never experienced, that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
But what we're creating in our blessings, Araceli, and I can testify to this firsthand, is nothing to do with that rotten orange. It's a beautiful apple, a mature and what's the word? A restored, liberated apple, if we're talking biblically speaking. The Bible kind of paints the apple or the fruit as some evil satanic thing. Fruits are just fruits. They're beautiful. I love fruits. You gotta love fruits. I think everybody loves fruits. I don't think there's an anti-fruit like group of, there's like a group of people that eat everything and there's like, oh, we're the anti-fruit. Everyone loves fruits. Anyway, so I think there's a version of an apple, metaphorically speaking, of course, that is a liberated version that is just beyond anything we've seen before. And that's the two worlds that we're merging together, of this highly religious, philosophical, theological, spiritual elements, and also the practical day-to-day stuff. How do you experience like life-changing sex? And that's what some people call it. It's like life-changing. Even on the secular side, people talking about experiencing God for the first time through sex.
Yeah.
And I'm like, geez, where can we get that? That's what it should be about. That's what Father's talking about. Earth-shattering, spirit, heaven and earth coming together. It should be life-changing intimacy that is not physical, but it's based on spiritual and internal emotional connection.
Mhm.
And so for me and my relationship with Hitoe now, it's just like, how do we create focus more of our attention on this like emotional vulnerability stuff? Because that's really the key to it, right?
Yeah. Amen.
All right.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
I just want to say that, I talked about this a lot and I repeat myself because when you're going through it, it's hard to accept this different perspective that we're growing. And we individually ourselves are growing. So giving grace to ourselves is important, right? And giving grace to others, right? And contextualize, right? We are restoring the fall, right? As we were talking about.
Right.
And it's not an easy feat, and we're the first trying to do it, and we're the first trying to create this amazing experience with God, right? With sexuality and with in connection with somebody else. And so you need to be connected, integrated yourself to be able to then connect with somebody else. And it's hard. And we're not going to always get it 100% all the time, right? But the fact that you're doing something about it, it's amazing already. And keep going at it, even if it feels hard, even if you feel, stuck or whatever it is that you're feeling when you're going through it, because the fact that you keep going through it, it will just lead you out of that tunnel, and you'll see the results eventually, right? A lot of the times here we say that we're growing a seed, right? And even though we don't see it under the earth, right, under the ground, it's growing. You're growing the roots, right? And you just need to keep going a little bit more, and you'll see, the the body of the plant growing out of the soil, right? So yeah, just
Yeah.
wanted to say that.
But that's only if you recognize. Sometimes people go years of growth and progress, and they just don't recognize the seed or the sprout that has grown.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you need to recognize it for sure.
All right. Thanks, everyone. God bless you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Lots of love. Hey, did you know that our team wants to do more events? Well, if you want to bring the High Noon message to your community or group, then let us know and we'll try to work something out. There's a simple application that you can fill out right now at highnoon.org/invite. And one of our team members will get back to you to see what's possible. That's highnoon.org/invite. All right, see you in the next episode.